Hi, and welcome back to the 10th Muse. So, today I'd like to talk about authenticity and the power of authenticity. Something that comes up quite frequently with many of my younger clients in psychotherapy involves the concept of being perceived. And many of you already know about this, but in short, this is sort of the hypersensitivity to how one is perceived or interpreted by other people. And because many of my younger clients have grown up online, this has become critical to their sense of self and that oftentimes produces a significant amount of anxiety. So today I'd like to talk about authenticity and what can be gained from it. What are some of the underpinnings to something that really cuts deep in our human psyche. Humans have evolved to be social creatures, and a part of our survival has depended upon being accepted by social groups. If one were ostracized, shunned, or expelled from a community, previously this could mean death. This could mean that you are without resources, support, or protection from your community, and that presents a dire crisis. So that anxiety is hardwired into us because it is something that has been essential to our ability to survive. So the threat of non-acceptance and shunning is one that many people can understand socially how that is damaging and can be quite terrifying to even have the threat of experiencing. And so, in our world today, where much of our community is not confined to the people who live in our geographic area or with whom we may find social connection, but oftentimes this is on social media. This is on the internet. This is most oftentimes becomes something that is self-limiting. So in our world, fascism and censorship have kept people from being as honest and open as they would like to be. Even though our First Amendment protects free speech, it is now under threat from people just having an opinion that isn't shared by others. The threat of being doxxed, being fired, being canceled, going viral, and having that upending your life is an extreme but sometimes real reality, and one which imposes a facade, whether it be one that you want to participate in or one that is socially necessitated. It's ugly, it's gross, I hate it, and I imagine many of you do too. What are the consequences of failing to comply with socialization and the expectations therein? Well, this could, as we said, cause real life danger. It bars one from finding connection in ways that are critical to survival. So it's not just that people don't like you, they keep you from earning income, they keep you from accessing what you need to survive. So this is a real threat. And in our current society, there's also many factors that have influenced this. So, the pandemic, we all went through this collectively. And for many of us, this was the first time we've actually been confronted with being alone, being separated, and feeling that other people are inherently a threat simply by being near us. And I'm afraid that that hasn't dissipated since we've gone back to regular living, although COVID still exists, but it isn't the threat that it was previously 5 years ago. So the impact of us psychologically viewing each other as a threat, whether it be physically, social distancing kind of brought that about. It also becomes amplified as we become siloed into our own little niches on the internet. And this too is one of them. So I hope in this little corner of the internet, what we can do is find a way to take back our collective power and be our authentic selves, because being a mask or masking is wholly unsatisfying. And everyone who's had to do it when they don't want to knows that. So here's a challenge. If you do want to reclaim your authenticity and you're not quite sure how, let's talk about it. I might be saying their name incorrectly, but I will include the link below. Does have insight into how we are affected by isolation. So, we are affected by isolation not only socially, but neurobiologically. There are areas of our brain that have been shown to decrease in volume and in functioning as a result of isolation. So, for all you nerdy folks out there, there's a study by Zobetti et al., and it talks about how our brains are affected by isolation. And what they found was that there was a strong correlation in areas such as the hippocampus, cerebellum, insula, and ventral striatum. And what that means for us is that loneliness and isolation has physical detriments. This is not simply feeling bad, feeling sad, anxious, depressed, although those things do happen. Physical changes can be observed in our brains as a result of isolation. So, some of the areas that I mentioned before relate to social cognition, memory, and reward and motivation. So, how does that? Why does that matter? Well, we all have these brains, and they've been around for 200,000 years, but we've only had social media for roughly 20 plus years. And that is something our biology was not prepared for. So, as you are wanting to embark upon embracing authenticity, know that this is profound. It is something that affects people on a physiological level, a psychological level, and a social one. All of those are significant, each in and of itself. So, public perception versus reality. That's oftentimes the conflict with social media. When we compare ourselves to curated, sometimes even false images and ideas on social media, we set ourselves up to fail. We cannot compete with that because it's simply not real. But if you don't realize that, if you interpret it as real, then you will oftentimes find yourself coming up short in comparison. And that's something we really want to avoid, mostly because it's not real in the first place. So, to liberate oneself from being overly focused on perception, how you are perceived by others, an important tool to use is mindfulness. So, mindfulness is the practice of being able to take a moment in the present without judgment. And in this moment, you observe your thoughts, your feelings, what's happening around you. This can be done any place, any time. It doesn't look weird. No one knows you're doing it. But it is a powerful tool to separate what is real from what is not, what belongs to you and what belongs to other people. If you are a person who struggles with identity, that can sometimes be very confusing. So, engaging the skill of mindfulness looks like identifying what feelings belong to you and what feelings belong to other people. It is listening to your own inner dialogue, just noticing what is the content of that conversation that's playing in the back of your mind. Is it kind? Is it loving? Is it affirming? Or is it something else? And then when you notice that, you have the ability to intervene. So if you notice, oh, well, I was feeling pretty crappy, and I think back, oh, yeah, I was looking at my so-and-so's feed and just feeling inadequate, wishing I could appear in such a way. And so that is a shame. That is a moment that you can recognize. And in that moment, You don't beat yourself up for doing it. In fact, you congratulate yourself for noticing. Celebrate this noticing, because this is an important opportunity for change. So when you notice that comparison, and you might ask yourself, well, what does that say about me? What does that mean? Now we're getting to a deeper level of what we attribute things to mean. You're bombarded with so much information, but did you have a chance to analyze what that really means? So, in comparison to others, if I see that I fall short in some way, or I wish that I were different than who or what I am, then I might take a notice of, what about that is so bad? What about that is so undesirable? And this is also an opportunity in which you can embrace yourself. So if your appearance is not what the filtered image presented to you looks like, then look at your real image. Look at it. Find what is not so bad. Maybe even something you can enjoy. And over time, you'll want to increase that. So that may look like starting off with some pretty far-fetched reaches. That's okay. You can accept that. Do accept that. And then as you practice this, it becomes easier to find more. Facing rejection is scary, and it oftentimes is the fear of rejection that keeps people in line. They don't even dare to step outside of societal expectations or dictates of various kinds. So to do that is to go on a leap of faith that you're enough. In fact, you're just fine the way you are, and maybe even fantastic because of your uniqueness. And that is in itself quite powerful, because it has you standing boldly, self-assuredly, confidently, instead of shrinking. It is to live unapologetically, which means that you don't need to apologize for taking up space or for being who you are, particularly when you're not harming anyone, you're just existing. So make no apologies for that. Be proud of who you are. Embrace it. That means that also means that not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. If you think about it, you probably don't like everyone either. And if the cost of being liked by everyone is to sacrifice who you are, what did you gain in the end? The people who love your mask don't love you. The people who you seek to impress, are they? Did it work? Did you get what you needed? Did you get what you wanted? What did you sacrifice in order to do so? That's a consideration. Maybe if you've ever done that, you sacrifice yourself to appease a social group or to fit in, then you might have reflected on what was that experience like. So you got invited to the party. You were invited to be a part of the group. Did it feel good when you were there? When the conversations were about things that maybe didn't appeal to you, or at least not interesting, but you smiled and you laughed and you played along? Was that really fun? Was it satisfying? Probably not. The fear of loneliness, the fear of rejection keeps people in unsatisfying situations and relationships. It's like wanting sustenance and getting only candy. It has the same amount of calories as a meal with sustenance, but will leave you hungry and desiring for more shortly after. So choose yourself. Choose to be yourself unapologetically, because to do so is to really bring who you are to the world, and that is a thing of value. not a facsimile, not a projection, but your authentic self. That is what the world needs. We've had enough of censorship, and we've had enough of influencers trying to sell you things. I think it's time to go back to just being real people, flawed, imperfect, but real. And that doesn't mean that it's an excuse to not grow as a human. By all means, it's the opposite. When you look at your authentic self, you see yourself, good and bad. And so the un I don't know, the unconditional love that you would want to foster for yourself can make space for imperfection. If you find something that you do actually want to change, then you're doing it because of your own intrinsic motivation rather than um, impulse to comply. That will satisfy you and will also draw people who appreciate you, because if they can't see you, then they don't have an opportunity to appreciate you, love you. And that is rejection, even if it's delivered with a smile. Also, when you have self esteem that comes from intrinsic sources, then that is something that's renewable. You know, if you're chasing validation from others, it's short lived. It feels good. You get the dopamine hit, you get the likes, it feels great. And then, like candy, you're hungry for more. Shortly thereafter, the high fades very quickly, and you're chasing like a hamster on a wheel, that validation, getting that next hit. When that comes from yourself, it is tapping into a well of resources that is renewable, because you are always learning, growing, evolving, and that's satisfying. So come with me and try this out. I want to hear how this works for you. If you find success in being your authentic self, I want to hear about how that's changed your life. I want to hear about how you have embraced yourself and the benefits that have come from that. Okay, I guess that's it. So, thank you for coming with me on this journey and listening to this little lecture, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's important, and I just wanted to share. So, thanks for listening.